Welcome to This Explainer. Today we're doing something a little different. We're looking really closely at something deeply personal, and honestly, something that's usually completely hidden from the outside world. We're peeling back the curtain on the devastating realities of toxic relationships. Now, if you're here, you likely already know that narcissistic abuse isn't just some simple clash of personalities, right? It's not. It is a systematic dismantling of a person's life. Okay, let's dive right into this and uncover the mechanics of this destruction.
So what is the true cost of loving a narcissist? It's a cost way bigger than just a bad breakup. When a relationship ends normally, sure, there's grief. But when you love an abuser, what's the ultimate price tag there? What is actually extracted from you? We often think about the time lost, but the source material we're analyzing today reveals actually it's more like a multi-layered devastation that strips away your health, your finances, and your fundamental identity. Just listen to the words of this survivor. It immediately shatters that public illusion we always see. At the very beginning, these relationships are usually characterized by intense love bombing. It's broadcasted to the world as absolute perfection, the ultimate fairy tale. But behind closed doors, it becomes a literal nightmare. The core cost isn't just the relationship failing, it's the victim becoming completely unrecognizable, even to themselves.
Section 1. The Hidden Nightmare.
This erasure, it doesn't just happen overnight. It starts with really subtle grooming and hidden tactics that slowly, systematically dismantle a life from the inside out. An abuser might casually claim something like, "You know how you're bad with money? You always overspend on Starbucks." And they say it with such absolute conviction that the victim actually starts to believe it, even when, get this, the victim is actually earning double the abuser's income. Meanwhile, the reality is entirely inverted. The abuser is the one out there hiding bankruptcies, recklessly burning through cash on drugs and alcohol, and just deflecting all that responsibility right onto their partner.
Okay, so how does this coercive control actually escalate? Well, it happens in stages. Step 1 is this unrelenting critique of the absolute simplest things. Putting away groceries, folding laundry. You literally cannot breathe without being told you're doing it wrong. Step 2 is the total removal of privacy, getting to the point where even a private phone call feels completely impossible. And step 3, deliberate public isolation. The sources detail this chilling example. It's wild, honestly. An abuser intentionally leaving his partner behind at the airport just because they were assigned to different boarding groups. Even though they had assigned seats together anyway, it's this completely manufactured, subtle cruelty that's designed entirely to make the victim feel invisible and replaceable. Here's another really insidious hidden tactic. Casual statements like, people don't like you, right? They weaponize these half-truths like totally normal workplace disagreements to paint this picture that the victim is universally unlikable. And this contrast technique is just incredibly damaging. It totally alienates the victim from their support system and makes them feel completely dependent on the very person who's abusing them. Section 2. The staggering financial toll.
As if the psychological manipulation wasn't enough, we really need to shift our focus from the mind to the undeniable material devastation that survivors are just left to clean up. Let that stark number sit there for a second. Hundreds of thousands of dollars. Wow. When survivors finally manage to escape, the financial theft they uncover is often just shocking. Abusers literally bleed them dry. They destroy their credit, squander shared resources, and sabotage their earning potential. It is an absolutely horrific scale of theft.
And, this financial ruin, it carries this incredibly deep, lingering shame. One survivor noted this absolutely heartbreaking reality, having to sit down with their children and realizing that the kids are already anticipating having to pay for their elder care because of what the abuser stole. The familial consequences of this financial abuse, they literally echo for generations.
Section 3. When the body keeps score. But the damage? It's not just in the bank account. This is absolutely crucial to understand. Psychological trauma inevitably manifests physically into undeniable, life-altering illnesses. The sheer accumulation of these ailments proves that abuse is a severe physiological trauma, not just an emotional one. The sources highlight some devastating examples. A woman having debilitating panic attacks while pregnant, utterly unaware it was her partner causing it. People literally cracking their teeth in their sleep from extreme night grinding. We're talking about an explosion of autoimmune diseases, asthma, severe MS complications. We are even seeing massive cardiovascular issues like heart attacks in survivors under the age of 50, and victims needing total hip replacements right after escaping due to the sheer physiological toll. This isn't just stress, guys. It's a systemic attack on the human body. And the numbers totally back this up. Look, after a normal traumatic event, roughly 40% of the population will deeply struggle and need help to recover. But for narcissistic abuse survivors, That number jumps to a staggering 75%. The vast majority struggle to get back on their feet. This just shows how uniquely devastating and insidious this specific type of abuse truly is.
Section 4. The erasure of identity.
Beyond the money and the physical toll is perhaps the most profound intangible cost of all, the complete loss of self and autonomy. The constant scrutiny and coercive control create such intense self-doubt that victims, well, they literally lose their voice. Survivors report developing stutters right out of nowhere. The fear of triggering an argument or being punished later for saying the wrong thing, it becomes so overwhelming that they actually experience mutism, the physical inability to speak at all. They are literally reduced to silence just to survive.
I want to pause on this quote right here because it totally shatters a major misconception. Abuse happens to incredibly smart, assertive, confident people. And the abuser's goal? It's to make the victim internalize all of that blame. You cannot simply outsmart an abuser. Victims convince themselves that because they're intelligent, they wouldn't allow themselves to be abused. Therefore, the problem must be their own failing. And that is exactly where the abuser wants them.
So, that brings us to this absolutely crucial question. When does it stop? Getting out of the relationship doesn't magically mean the abuse is over. This question bridges the gap between ending the relationship and facing that heavy, lingering trauma that follows survivors directly into their newfound freedom.
Section 5. The path to healing. All right, moving from the heavy atmosphere of destruction to the actual, intentional work of recovery. A major hurdle is understanding what happens to the mind post-escape. Survivors often develop a mild form of agoraphobia. See, because they feel they made a massive mistake trusting their abuser, they no longer trust their own judgment. So what do? They let their world get smaller. They isolate themselves, avoiding new risks, new challenges, new people, all in a desperate attempt to just feel safe again.
This results in what we call a trauma hangover, where the abuser's conditioning outlasts the relationship itself. Survivors find themselves agonizing over how to word a simple text message just so they aren't misunderstood. Or, say a new partner simply misplaces their keys. The survivor goes into a full panic response, completely terrified, because in the past, a lost key meant an explosive rage. They might feel so overwhelmed in a grocery store that they just abandon their cart and run home. The abuser's ghost is literally still sitting right there on their shoulder.
But listen, there is absolutely a way out. The sources emphasize a very specific, actionable methodology for healing. Step 1 is breaking the isolation. You have to find a safe community, because connection is the ultimate antidote to coercive control. Step 2 is validating those shared experiences, so you realize, hey, you aren't crazy and you definitely aren't alone. And step 3, this one is critical. You must process the anger and grief. Society really doesn't like angry victims, but releasing that taboo anger in a safe space is entirely necessary to truly heal.
Which leaves us with this final thought. Untangling the deeply rooted hooks of narcissistic abuse takes massive courage. But the good news? What was destroyed can absolutely be rebuilt even stronger. The very first step to reclaiming your identity is simply knowing you don't have to do it alone. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I really hope this gives you the clarity you need to keep moving forward.